Jim Irsay has just tweeted out that he has just completed his interview with Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy has interviewed for the Indianapolis Colts job. I'm a little bit surprised that he is getting this opportunity, Matthew. I kind of wondered if that was going to be the end of his chances of interviewing, but Chris Ballard in the Indianapolis Colts, Jim Irsay, have given Eric Bieniemy an interview today.
So there's a lot to unpack here, from Jim Irsay announcing it on Twitter by just essentially saying, we have completed our interview with Eric Bieniemy, and then the flex emoji. So what a way to announce, just straight from Irsay himself as a tweet with emojis. That was amazing. But then also Zach Kiefer, who covers the Colts for the Colts in the NFL for The Athletic, also tweeted out the Colts have been digging in to Eric Bieniemy the last few days, and then they had completed the interview with him per Jim Irsay. So they've apparently been doing a little bit of legwork the past couple days. They were able to keep it under wraps here for a little bit. Now it's pop because Irsay just wanted to tell the world via a tweet. And, I don't know if Irsay does stuff on purpose or not. I don't know what his process is, but it's interesting the way it was announced to me.
Yeah, and just to put it in reference with the rest of the coaches that the Colts have been looking at here, they've been seeking permission to interview Shane Steichen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Raheem Morris. They did interview Bubba Ventrone. They did interview Ejiro Evero, and reportedly, now Eric Bieniemy is one of those. Jeff Saturday certainly has gotten an interview as well, kind of as the interim head coach there. So they are in on some of these players, some of these coaches that are hotter names. But when you look at that, I mean, really, Shane Steichen's the only guy that I think you look through that list and you're like, man, that guy's been on more, hot head coaching lists than a guy like Eric Bieniemy. So it could be that they're looking for kind of that tier, obviously not going after Sean Payton or anything like that, but could be looking at that tier. Maybe this is the spot that Eric Bieniemy finally gets himself a shot to coach an NFL team.
Okay, so one thought here is, with Jeff Saturday, former player, culture guy, they wanted to try to bring him in here to bring him into the building for the rest of the season to establish a culture, have some brutally honest conversations with that team. And the funny thing is, if you read some of the reports and stuff, it sounds like some of those things were really genuinely materializing for that organization. A lot of the on-field product on Sundays wasn't necessarily translating to some of the anonymous feedback that they were giving about the Jeff Saturday era that said, hey, look, there's some, maybe not the best Sunday performances, but some of the responses to these guys and the culture being established in some ways, was working. Well, Eric Bieniemy doesn't pull punches. That's one of the things that teams, that the team respects about him, that players respect about him, the brutal honesty, the accountability, the loving guys hard. I mean, if those were some of the things that Jim Irsay was seeking in his next head coach, well, I mean, I think there's some correlation to what Eric Bieniemy can provide when you listen to some of the things that players hold dearly about Eric Bieniemy is that accountability and that leadership and that brutal honesty that breeds a lot of love too.
I think EB's the kind of coach that makes a lot of sense for the Colts, coming off of Frank Reich, and he's kind of the offensive mind, a play caller. He's in control of one side of the football, which makes him an easy scapegoat when that side of the football doesn't work. But usually when you do that and it fails, the pendulum swings the other way. So you might consider a defensive head coach, but defensive head coaches don't work out a lot in the NFL anymore.
Mm-hmm.
NFL's kind of turning away from those guys. So the next type is the motivational guy, a manager type. And I think that's EB's path to being a head coaching candidate. I don't think he comes across, I mean, I could be entirely wrong, but as a guy that's going to control the whole offense, call all the plays, design everything. He's going to have his fingers in there, but that's not what he's going to do. He is going to be managing everybody else, put together a good staff, have a good beat and a good read on everybody. And if you look at the Colts roster over the past years, they haven't won because of Frank Reich's elite offensive game planning or play
Yeah.
calling. It's been based on the type of player they get, the buy-in they've been getting. Like that seems to really resonate with the way Chris Ballard scouts, the way that scouting department brings players in and what they respond to. So I think Eric Bieniemy makes a lot of sense for that team. I think that's a good mesh, and it's a quality roster of guys overperforming their talent level, but it's still a quality roster. They're just a quarterback away. You're not asking Eric Bieniemy, first-time head coach, to come in there and rebuild a 53-man roster. He needs to find a quarterback and keep everyone motivated, and then they should see themselves as a competitor for the playoffs, for the Super Bowl. It's like that's a good spot. That's a good spot to be in for that type of coach. I think it makes sense from both sides, but boy, they're interviewing everybody right now.
They kind of are, yeah. And I'm lockstep with Maddie there. I think he makes a lot of sense. You look at that Colts roster and kind of the way that every season recently has spiraled downward further and further. You need a guy that's going to try and hold some accountability, try and bring that squad up. And, after they trade for Derek Carr and they have their quarterback, like at that point, you can look at that roster and go, oh, they probably are going to win the AFC South. And with Eric Bieniemy at the helm, that's not out of the question. And boy, that would be a hell of a turnaround in year one.
One other thing to kind of keep an eye on when it comes to Eric Bieniemy and the Colts potentially is he was firsthand to watch a quarterback developmental process. If I know you tongue in cheek a little bit about Derek Carr, I hope. But if they go take the swing at quarterback, which I think Colts fans have probably been wanting them to for the longest time, if they go make a big move and get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud, well, Eric Bieniemy was a big part of helping develop Patrick Mahomes when he first got in there too. And he's kind of seen that development, that transition, and how to help facilitate a young quarterback starting to enter the league. It's going to be interesting to monitor. We'll see. I believe Times Ours has reported that there are potentially in Times Ours, Nate Taylor, Seth Kaiser, Joshua Briscoe. I don't think I need to explain who those guys are, but it sounds like Times Ours. Nate's reporting that, and you can find Nate on KC Sports Network too. That there might be even more interviews for Eric Bieniemy in line as well. So good for Eric Bieniemy that he's getting some more opportunities, and we'll find out if he is the next coach of the Indianapolis Colts or somebody else. Eric Bieniemy interviewing with Jim Irsay Thursday night, January 12th.